Today, I'd like to thank you for joining the American Federation of School Administrators and our Italian colleagues as we have a heart-to-heart discussion on mental health, an international challenge. Here in the United States, this being the month of May, highlights mental health awareness. The objectives of the World Health Organization's World Mental Health Day is scheduled in October. And its goal is to raise mental health awareness and those issues globally. According to the Worldwide Mental Health Foundation, the global mental health crisis is a major issue facing the world today. The numbers we're seeing are staggering. Mental illness affects an estimated 950 million people worldwide. And it is the leading cause of disability across all age groups. On this planet Earth, where we call home, there are still many who live in shame, express guilt, live in isolation, and are discriminated against, and it impacts our mindsets towards mental illness. Before we take a deeper dive in this topic, please welcome the American Federation of School Administrators, President Dr. Leonard Pugliese. Len?
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you to those of you out there in our audience. Today you will experience a special event. Today you will witness an international panel discussion on an issue that knows no borders: the mental well-being of our students, our staffs, and our communities. This international panel discussion is made possible by the historic international collaborative agreement recently signed by the American Federation of School Administrators and our Italian partners, Senza Zaino. The American Federation of School Administrators is a labor union and a proud member of the AFL-CIO. It represents close to 25,000 school principals and other school leaders here in the United States, Puerto Rico, and the United States Virgin Islands. Senza Zaino consists of school principals and other school leaders in 800 schools across geographic regions in Italy. The American Federation of School Administrators and Senza Zaino are pleased that we can present this cross-cultural learning opportunity where we can learn from each other, where we can look beyond our own context when addressing the mental health issue. We stand together across continents and cultures, united in our belief that school leadership in education is the cornerstone of progress and prosperity. Our partnership is an example of how borders can fade away in the light of common goals and shared dreams, making way for a future where our students, educators, and leaders thrive in an increasingly interconnected world. Thank you all again. Now, enough from me. Let me turn it back to Lauren.
President Iselda Barghini of the Association of Senza Zaino, would you please take a moment to share remarks? Thank you.
Grazie mille, salve a tutte e a tutte. Io devo fare un grande ringraziamento a Raymond Isola.
Thank you very much, and hello to all of you. I have to give a big thank you to Raymond Isola for the opportunity he gave us at Senza Zaino and for the resulting agreement we've entered into with the American Federation of School Administrators. And above all, thank you to the working group for its discussion and its decision to choose mental health as our first topic of study.
Questo tema è molto sentito, soprattutto anche dopo l'impatto che ha avuto il Covid-19 sulla condizione appunto della salute psichica dei ragazzi, delle ragazze, dei bambini, ma anche degli adulti.
Currently in Italy, especially with the impact of COVID-19, there has not only been great concern with the mental health of boys, girls, and all children, but also with the mental health of adults. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity, and I'm certain it will provide us with a moment of genuine engagement and exchange. This is just the first moment, and I hope it continues over time, and I especially hope that the collaborative relationship between our two groups continues for a long time to come. From the beginning, since the early 2000s, the EU has based its research and practices on the well-being of boys and girls. The World Health Organization also speaks of well-being in terms of mental health and defines it precisely as physical, mental, and social well-being. In this way, Senza Zaino approaches the issue of education through a global lens. We also recognize the latest recommendations of WHO as truly multidisciplinary and multidimensional, and we agree that it puts into practice our own values of hospitality, community, and responsibility.
Comunità, responsabilità, attraverso tutta un'organizzazione che va dagli spazi alle relazioni, ai rapporti interpersonali. Quindi questo è
So, relationships, interpersonal relationships, is a topic that is really close to our hearts and that Senza Zaino is trying to make manifest in our schools. That is a truly multidisciplinary approach that is of interest not only in our schools, but to the whole education community. In other words, the local school authorities in Italy, the public sector, education associations, and all our social and health organizations. So this is a truly multidimensional approach, and I hope our alliance can really bring great benefits to both you and us, and will become increasingly fruitful for both of us. Good job indeed.
buon lavoro davvero.
Thank you so very much. We are so privileged, and certainly your school, Senza Zaino, is so privileged to have you as its leader. Today, we're privileged to have with us to discuss this global concern, passionate educators from Italy and the United States, representing our Italian colleagues, Nella De Angeli, Dr. Salvatore Lentini, and Marco Orzi. Thank you all so much for gracing us and being with us. And representing the American Federation of School Administrators here in the United States, representing Puerto Rico, representing the Virgin Islands. We are very pleased to have with us Dr. Anthony Salvatore, co-president of the Connecticut Federation of Schools, and an amazing assistant principal in Buffalo, New York, Miss Lizzie Crispin. So let's get right into it. Panel members, please tell us about the role of principals, schools, leaders in both educational systems. We have an educational system in Italy that might be a little bit different than in the United States, but yet we're still very similar in our passion. So Dr. Tony Salvatore from the United States, please share with us.
Thank you, Lauren, and welcome to our Italian colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here with you, given my heritage. In American schools, we have a variety of different models. We go from principal, usually a principal in every school. Many times we have assistant principals. We have at the high school level, middle school level, and elementary levels. Schools also include many other staff, such as the school psychologist, the school social worker, a nurse, very often school counselors. And then at the district level, there'd be like an assistant superintendent or superintendent. In Connecticut, for example, we have 169 cities and towns, and that means we have 169 superintendents required by law, and several thousand of high school principals, middle school principals, and elementary school principals, working a variety from 12 months a year to 11 months to 10 months. It depends on the district who makes that decision. Other parts of the country, we operate by counties. In the state of Florida, for example, they have a county system. So they have one superintendent that covers the county. instead of each town or city. We also have different models, public schools and private schools, secular and non-secular schools, and other types such as Montessori school model, or Waldorf school model, or charter schools, or magnet schools. So we have a variety of models, and basically the role of the principal in each of these schools, briefly, it kind of is responsible for everything from the cleanliness of the building to the security of the building, to staff hiring, to staff development, to staff evaluation, to making sure lunch is served on time, making sure buses arrive on time, handling crises, small and large, some that you've been trained for and some that you haven't. And so that's kind of in a capsule, kind of our melting pot, so to speak, of how our system is set up.
Thank you so much, Tony. Professor Lentini, would you please share with us how the kinds of leadership roles, varying leadership roles that we experience or that you're experiencing in Italy? How are our Italian colleagues managing their schools?
Yeah, hi everybody, and thank you. I'm so excited and honored to be here. Yeah, I try to explain to the American audience because the Italian school system is quite different from US. In Italy, a principal has at least from 5 to 10 different schools. From 700 students to more than 1,000 students, maybe 2,000. And so we have to work with many schools together. We have comprehensive institutes from the kindergarten to middle school, and then high schools separated. In my case, I work in a normal little school institute, and I have 5 different schools and more than 700 students. So it's quite different from the American principle. But I feel that Italian and USA school systems are different in many ways, but the educational issues and also emergencies are much the same. Mostly early school living and the well-being of students, but teachers and principal too. And so this exchange is so interesting for us and so important in order to try to improve our way to stand these big issues in all our countries.
Thank you, Dr. Lentini. So I'd like to move into, as you mentioned that you manage multiple schools, your principal, not only you, Professor, but your principal leaders, your school leaders manage multiple schools. How does that look like in terms of providing services and identifying those students, those communities that could use the support of mental illness supports? How does one manage that?
It's so hard. In my case, I have students of 3-year-old students to 14 years, and so many different needs. And we in Senza Zaino network, school network, we try to work with the community, to work side by side with the different associations in our country, in order to stand the different needs. Needs that are really very, very different because we have a lot of fragility of families, a lot of mental problems, different mental problems in our students, such as food disorders, but also depression, isolation, and also problem of money, of special money needs. And so we try to stand all together with the community, the different problems.
Thank you so much, Professor Lentini. Tony, Lizzie, what are your thoughts? How that plays out here in the United States? How do you manage in the positions that you hold? How are you managing the mental health of your students, your colleagues, and how that impacts the delivery of academic coursework?
So if I may start from the perspective of an assistant principal, oftentimes we are the first line of defense or intervention when it comes to identifying tell signs of distress in students. Particularly after COVID, there has been a marked increase in students with depression and anxiety. Similarly to our partners in Italy, there is an uptake, I should say, in suicide ideation and bullying, which is only made worse by social media and the virtual world. So as an assistant principal, we're tasked with addressing these concerns by putting supports in place, involving the student support teams, collaborating with parents, as well as community partners. One of the things that, particularly in my district, we've tried to do is to increase student voice by having students join wellness teams, wellness Wednesdays, joyful Thursdays, and have activities that would increase engagement. But getting students to disconnect from the virtual world has been and has proven very difficult, for sure.
Thank you, Lizzie. Tony, do you have any thoughts that you'd share?
Yes. A lot of what I hear from our school administrators is same as Lizzie just so well put, an increase in different kinds of behaviors and suicide ideations and so forth. We have some administrators in our building, some principals who have intentionally set up curriculum programs that build in wellness strategies. For example, teaching students how to do yoga or how to meditate during physical education classes or health classes. On the staff side, we have administrators who create calming room for staff to recenter during the day, but that it's a priority. There's soft music, comfort food, quiet part of the building. Not in every building, obviously, but those who are kind of on the forefront of integrating these kinds of strategies and techniques send a twofold purpose, a twofold message. One is that it's important and that they set aside time and resources to make it happen. Just to kind of recap on that, to put it kind of in a nutshell, what we're seeing in schools is more reaction by students rather than interaction. They jump to almost immediate confrontation instead of trying to understand where the other person is coming from, and also understanding that they have no control over another person's behavior. They can only control their own. And that sets up another opportunity for a district-wide framework for understanding behavior in a very different way than has been traditionally taught in terms of a stimulus response understanding. It's more complicated than that.
Thank you, Tony. Marco, Nella D'Angela, please, I'd like to invite you to share your perspectives on this conversation and on this topic as well. What kinds of experiences, and your perspectives, how are you seeing mental health impact students and school leaders?
I am principal of a school in of the outskirts of a small town in Tuscany, and we often speak with. I often speak with my staff, and regarding the topics of the wellness in the school, and we often emphasize the importance of addressing negative relationship within the school, and we try to implement a specific intervention to take the challenges we face every day. Usually we spoke about the to create a positive connections among the students, among teachers, between the school and families, like you are saying also, and with the other stakeholder. We try to resolve through several programs, some conflict programs about the conflict resolution. We try to manage student conflict, and at the same time the professional development on communication and empathy to foster stronger relationship between student and teacher. We try also to encourage, for example, peer mentoring programs, and in our idea, the promotion of the inclusion, the culture of inclusion of wellness is really very important. You speak about the bullying, and we try also to mitigate the issues like bullying or exclusion. We know in Senza Zaino also we speak about the restorative justice approaches rather than disciplinary action, because for us this contribute to a positive social, to create a positive social environment, and this could also permit to support the student emotional and social development.
Thank you, Nella. I'm hearing you speak to different kinds of strategies: social emotional awareness, conflict management, the mitigation of conflicts. Restorative justice is something very dear and near to us. Tony, I'd like you to kind of respond, and Lizzie, you as well. What kinds of adverse behaviors are you noticing that are on the increase? Tell us a little bit about that.
First, let me say 20 years ago, I heard from a Yale psychiatrist who shared that he was seeing an increase in depression among adolescents. And it was an increase with high performing students, not students you would normally expect would be depressed or would have depression. And the reason for that is they are very capable intellectually to overcompensate, to basically fool other people. So these are students like your captain of the teams, your head cheerleaders, your National Honor Society people, high performing students who have a lot of friends, are smiling, and people wouldn't see them necessarily as being depressed. They would see them as being very happy kids. And these are often the kids who later you hear people say, I never suspected anything was wrong, because they can cover it up. But it's at a great cost to themselves, physically and emotionally draining, to put up that front for the entire day. Now that was 20 years ago. And I think as Lizzie so well put it, we're seeing an increase in those kinds of behaviors, not only with top students, but with every student. So I think, I think I've spoken about this before about, closing the gap. We spent a lot of time on physical, on looking at like physical hygiene or physical benefits of, or physical, harm of diabetes or heart condition or any of the other physical conditions, but we've neglected brain health, and there's a gap. There are reports about doing mental hygiene, like physical hygiene, that we need to help everybody, students and parents and communities and adults, to learn what to look for, when to ask for help, because brain health isn't as obvious as a physical condition. If someone has a broken bone or is bleeding, doctors know what to do. And a lot of medical doctors aren't trained for brain health, other than maybe psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, that can recognize those elements of that kind of brain health that remains largely hidden and unknown to people. And we don't address that in the schools, at least to my knowledge, as much as we should.
Thank you, Tony. Lizzie?
Yes, and just to add to that, I agree, right? We've definitely seen an increase in psychosis, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, cutting, but also apathy. Students that completely kind of check out or disengage because they feel so overwhelmed with everything that is happening in their lives, or they don't have a good way of managing their stress. I do agree that that affects greatly high achieving students as well, who oftentimes want to portray that they can handle it well until a crisis occurs. And then we become aware of how stressed they feel or they might be. And so it is important to, as administrators, always be on the lookout for, identifiers or symptoms as to how our students are feeling. I think even as administrators, it's important to make sure that our teachers continue to be trained on trauma-informed strategies to identify when students are struggling so that we can put supports in place.
Thank you, Lizzie. Marco, tell me or tell us the impacts of mental health. How has that affected your school community, neighborhood community? Are you seeing increase in, are you seeing any kind of gun violence or increased student behaviors and bullying? Tell us a little bit about that, if you can.
Yes. In our country in 2022, for example, the Italian survey shows that the 46% of 11 years old students feel under stress, a percentage that rises to 64 for 15 years old. We saw that according to other research, behavioral disorder among students are at 10%. Anxiety disorders reach 12%. In Italy, for instance, we have had major episodes of violence. In our newspapers several months ago, we could read, for examples, an episode in Varese. A 16 years old student in the school hall pulled out a switchblade and stabbed one of her teachers in the back. Another episode in Taranto, we are in the Europa Alighieri Comprehensive Institute. The principal ended up in the emergency room after being beaten by the father of a little girl. The statistic shows us, for instance, that in 2023, we had 36 serious episodes of violence occurred. And now, in this year, in 2024, there have already been 27 episode of violence. This is our situation.
One episode of violence is way too many, and I could feel and sense your pain as well. What do you see school systems? How do you see school systems providing support to meet the challenges of mental health? This is across the globe. This is across the Atlantic Ocean, both in Italy, and we're experiencing in the United States some similar kinds of behaviors, which is why this conversation is so deeply meaningful and so important. So I just feel that I want to thank each and every one of you that are participating on this call, representing not only the United States, but Italy, to share your passion. What is being done to support these kinds of challenges? Marco, Dr. Lentini, Nella, please share in Italy what this may look like.
I can try, yes. Okay. I can try to answer to your question, Lauren. The issue of mental health in Italy school is really a significant challenge. In fact, in Italy, our Minister of Health and the Minister of Education in 2019 signed the guidelines, integrated policy guidelines to respond to wellness, to health for our student. And these guidelines emphasize really the importance to promoting health within school systems. And for us, these policy guidelines are important because they have a bottom-up approach, if I can say in this way, because they draw from on school initiative to enhance student well-being and mental health awareness. But in Italy, we have also other initiative, for example, that are undertaken by institute like our National Institute for Education Research, or university, or research institution that makes research, or also by no-profit organization and individual schools or networks, such as Senza Zaino network, or we have another very important national network of school called Health Promoting School Network. So this means that in Italy the mental health is very very important. But I have also to say to you that despite this, the recognized importance to promotion of health in school, the Italian school have autonomy in promoting a culture of wellness. This means that the support of school leaders, or commitment of a teacher, or a vision of the school like a community are really essential for enhancing student health.
Thank you so much, Nella. Tony, what kinds of things are we doing here in this country? What are you seeing?
That's a very good question. I'm seeing a lot of things, as Nella put it so well. You know, trauma-informed teaching is becoming important for teachers to understand what trauma is for students and what it looks like at different levels. For example, elementary school children, they may act out. You may see more behaviors that might be inappropriate. Whereas at the high school level, you may see withdrawal. They kind of change, they kind of go inside themselves and don't have much interaction. So it's noticing those kinds of behavioral changes is important, not only by teachers and administrators and parents, but also by the student himself or herself, to notice what's happening within themselves if they can. and to have that understanding. There are also different levels of trauma that we need to understand, from primary trauma to secondary to vicarious trauma, so that you could become vicarious trauma could be reading something in a social media post that traumatizes a child, and the trauma is defined by the child in terms of its impact on them, as opposed to a primary traumatic experience where they are actually involved or abused or see someone killed in front of them. And those are lifetime conditions that they will have to deal with. It just doesn't go away. And again, going back to the physical illness versus brain health, they're invisible unless you're aware of looking at some indicators of, again, continued depression or eating disorders or so on like that. And especially for, and then you may get to this question at some point in terms of it impacts adults as well. And that's one of my concerns personally, the impact on school leaders, teachers, staff, any school leader. Something I learned in my reading, the notion of comforter fatigue, which is what school leaders do every day, taking care of students, taking care of teachers, taking care of parents. Maybe in their own lives, they may be taking care of their own parent. It creates a condition called comforter fatigue, which I never knew, and that has a tremendous impact on individuals without even realizing. It's kind of like a silent, killer of heart disease, for example, to draw to a physical. So there are a number of things that can be addressed and should be addressed. I think we're getting there. The question is, are we doing it as quickly as need be before we lose more children?
Thank you, Tony. Lindsay, from the assistant principal lens, you are at ground zero. You're seeing so much with students, with staff, through evaluations. How and what kinds of recommendations might you share to address some of these challenges where both of our countries, we have some common ground? We've identified some similarities.
Well, I think that first and foremost, in order to close the access gap, because there is an access gap when it comes to mental health, when it comes to our students, we have to get to know our students, right? To be able to start removing some of those hurdles. For example, we know that statistically speaking, students from certain backgrounds might not have access to mental health. And so bringing in mental health providers into the school helps remove that access hurdle, because then they can receive that support during their school hours. And then transportation is no longer a hurdle. But also overall, looking at providing culturally responsive care, looking at flexibility when it comes to providing accommodations for work completion, or allowing certain children struggling with anxiety to take tests virtually, or providing peer support is important. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, and there is not a one shoe fits all, right, response for this, but it is, as an administrator, our task is to make sure that we're taking the temperature of our school every day, every hour, every class visits, noticing changes in personalities of our students as they come through the door. I know that we welcome our students every day. Good morning, what kind of a day are you having? So that we can intervene, so that we can connect them with the appropriate supports. But also to talk about what Tony mentioned when it comes to administrators. I think as districts, in order to be able to address mental health at an administrative level, need to work on removing the stigma, right? Because there's this stigma that as school leader, we really have to have it all together in order to lead. And so that causes a lot of administrators to maybe not seek help or assistance. And so normalizing seeking mental health supports is important and impactful, because then it removes that stigma from administrators to reach out, so that then they can in return continue to provide supports to their school community, as well as continue to work on making those connections with community partnerships to bring in those resources into the building, into the classroom, so that they're easily accessible for children.
Work environments impact the well-being of our students and staff and community. Can you speak a little bit about the environment of the schools, the building itself, that provides some respite for your staff, the environment that is created to embrace education and your students there?
In the Senza Zaino movement, the school environment is considered as a third actor of the educational relationship, with great attention to care, comfort, beauty. Our environment is organized as a network of nodes with a kept workstation, laboratories, access point for investigating the world, and connection, such as the multiplication of meeting places, informal meeting places inside the school. It's a sort of landscape that recognizes learners as key participants in a well-organized cooperative learning, encourages their active engagement, develops in them an awareness of their own learning activities, making the objectives clear and giving pupils confidence in achieving their goals. Our classrooms in Senza Zaino network are polycentric, for instance, and multifunctional, provided with shared equipment and different areas. The heart of our classrooms is made up of large tables where students can work individually, in pairs, or in groups. And here, students can access autonomously to structured activities using visual, tactile, and digital tools according to the diversity of learning styles, interests, talents, and adjusting the complexity of the task to each student's ability. In our school, we have the Agora, a sort of small square for circle time, that is a daily training place for the development of skills, conflict management, and participation in community life, discussing the problems that arise from time to time, researching and sharing the appropriate strategies. It is the Agora also the place of welcome in the morning when you arrive at school, to greet each other, to share and organize activities and duties. For us, outdoor education is important too. Our schools have open air classrooms, scientific and botanical gardens for outdoor learning in the natural environment, so important for us for the wellness. So that's what we try to do with the environment in Senza Zaino School.
Thank you so much. I've not heard the term the health of the classroom. That is such a powerful statement, Dr. Lentini. Building relationships with students and families. It's what I heard Lizzie speak to. It's certainly what I heard Tony speak to. And those are some common grounds, some common points and similarities that all of us on this call are striving for. So thank you so much for sharing that, the health of a classroom. How important it is to integrate mental health and well-being strategies into our internal school-wide policies and our political policies as it relates to education on both sides of the water. So I'll ask our Italian colleagues if you please make some comments around that.
We have an important project that involves 15 15 schools in our country. This project has the aim in combating educational poverty. The title is of the project is Lesson Time is Not Enough. In our project, we address the issues that educational poverty is not only economic poverty, but also cultural and social poverty. And in our project, to address educational poverty and so also the problem of mental health, we have two principles. The first one is mental health is protected and achieved with the, in our opinion, in our action, with the quality of teaching. And the second is mental health is protected and addressed with the promotion of the educational community around the school. So teaching must, above all, be based on the recognition of diversity, on differentiated and non-standardized education, on the connection, for instance, between body and mind, emotions and reasons, hand and brain, and it is very important for us, virtual and real life, on knowledge that excites and involves. So the school must commit itself to developing a social community responsible for the growth of children and the young people. We speak about or we have to remember the famous African proverb that says it takes an entire village to raise a child. For these reasons, the school manager, the head teacher, we can consider it as a social architect. This is our project.
Wow. Economic, social, educational poverty and the focus of mental health protects the quality of education. Those are powerful words, Marco. Thank you so much. Tony, Lizzie, I know that you're itching to join in response to talking about how we integrate mental health and the well-being strategies in school policies. Where do you see that? How do you feel about that? I know that your passion is just as our Italian colleagues, so please join in on your comments.
Marco, I love what you just said. It brings back memories of years ago when we in this country started going down that path. Instead of segregating subjects and taking them independently, we began to look at combining them. That learning is not isolated in a silo. It's connective. It's enervating. It's exciting. Has potential to impact the whole child and eventually the whole society. We used to call it interdisciplinary curriculum, interdisciplinary planning, where you could see the connections between science and math and music and art and English, social studies, working together instead of being taught in isolation. And very often we're very good at isolating topics in education. At least that's how we started out. And then that kind of evolved into numbers and test scores, and that was the focus. And we're back into the silo. So I applaud that project as your latest venture. I think you're absolutely that's a wonderful idea and good for children and good for our world.
But I absolutely agree. I think it's extremely important to provide supports, right? And one of the things that we do, particularly as assistant principal, is that we lead lunch bunches, right? Where students can come together and during lunch, share their struggles, share strategies. It's kind of what I was referring to when I mentioned peer support. I think that particularly in high school, the peer influence is so strong. Students really care and listen to each other, oftentimes much more than they might adults. And so providing them with the space, the safe space to be able to come together and share their struggles and their strategies is important. It's one of the things that been able to champion here. Also, if we take in consideration the decreasing attendance and how self-esteem is affected by mental health, by again, empowering students, right, to speak their truth, to speak about their challenges, to have access to mental health supports in the building, as I mentioned before, is important and very impactful. Sometimes through the peer groups, students are able to hold each other accountable, which is also important. So those are some of the things that as a school we do, and I know that in the United States, overall, is one of the approaches to address student need.
How important is it for you to kind of move away from being at your site, but be at the table where policies for the country are being made?
As I said, each school has autonomy in Italy, and this autonomy started on 2000. So it means that the schools in Italy can make choose about the program they want to do, and it depends. For example, the location where the school is, because we could tell different answer, and we could analyze different problem, because this depend of the school we are organizing, as a principal. For example, when I said about the guidelines, that there is a national network of school that organize meeting, assembly, they discuss about the well-being. This depend of the culture of the principal, the culture of the inclusion culture of the community in the school. I'm a principal of a school. I have more than 800 students from Salvatore, from 3 to 14 years. So as you tell, we have a different barrier, different answer that we can do. The important is that our sometimes it seems that the minister is far from the school, but we have some experiences, some best experiences or practices to meet each other, to meet the minister, meet the school, and the school meet the minister. It's not really, we are we are every day organizing. Every day we have to tell an answer. So, but I'm positive because I think that also the minister in since many years is pay attention to the theme of wellness. In fact, I discovered, for example, that our minister decided to make a survey for the wellness of Italian student with an international organization. So it means that many many subjects are really interested in do this. So it's possible a line to create created from the minister and school also.
Thank you, Nella. Inclusive communities, bridging together those of us that work in our schools and talking to our educational leaders. I know that Tony, you probably have some feelings about and can express and talk about on this side of the ocean, the importance of leaders, school leaders having a voice at the table. Please share.
Well, I can relate to what Nella just said on many levels. Yes, we have politics in the United States. I know it's hard to believe. It's vital for school leaders to be part of the conversation and trying to carve out part of their busy day to attend hearings on educational issues or contact legislators. As you know, our state union a couple months ago, we just arranged a meeting with the leaders of our education committee in our legislature, and they welcome all information they can get. The more information they can get to better inform them, to make decisions, to help schools and to help children, the better. They were honest and said, you know, they're not the experts in education. That's not their field. Just like, you know, I might say I'm not, you know, an attorney or, you know, an expert necessarily in law. But again, it's finding and making the time to have those conversations, to develop those relationships, the network with our legislative leaders who make the laws. I remember when I first started teaching, it was hard for other teachers to understand that everything we do in this country in education is connected to laws, everything. So it's important to be part of that process and to share our knowledge and our expertise with the leaders who make the laws that control education.
Thank you so much, Tony. I tell you, what an enlightening conversation we have been participating in. The commonality of awareness, of strategies, of recognizing that our children, our communities are important, and that we both, on both sides of the Atlantic, are doing everything that we can to alleviate, to address the barriers, to talk about the importance of removing stigmas on mental illness, not only for our students and our communities, but we as leaders, because we are the ones that are having to navigate this. I cannot thank you, all of you, so much for engaging in this conversation with us. We are closer and very similar than probably we ever imagined. This is an exciting global conversation, one that it's not going to end here, but we recognize the time difference on both sides of the ocean. And at this time, I would love for us all to hear from our president, Lynn Pugliese. So Lynn, would love to hear your comments and thoughts on this robust conversation.
What a wonderful inaugural international event between AFL-CIO and Senza Zaino. As we close today's panel discussion, I'm struck by the deep connections forged between Senza Zaino Italian school leaders and our American school leaders from AFL-CIO. It's clear that despite the miles that separate us, we're united in our commitment to bettering the mental health of our students, staff, and communities. It's wonderful to see such unity in addressing the complex challenges of mental health, reaffirming that these are indeed global issues not confined to any country or culture. The shared experiences and strategies from both Italian and American perspectives have illuminated the commonalities in our struggles. Let's carry forward the spirit of today's dialogue, using it as a cornerstone for building stronger, more empathetic educational systems that place mental health and the well-being at the forefront of our priorities. As we part ways, I encourage all of us to continue this critical conversation in our respective spheres, inspired by the insights we've shared here today. Let's remain connected and steadfastly work toward a future where every student, educator, and community member has the support and resources they need to thrive cognitively and emotionally. Thank you, Lauren, for moderating today's discussion. And thank you to our panelists, Nella, Anthony, Lizzie, Salvatore, and Marco, for your insights and contributions. And thank you to Senza Zaino for your commitment to our continued international collaboration. Together, we are paving the way for a brighter, healthier future for all. To you all, I say, until then, next time, be well and stay well.